The ground beneath your feet is 156 degrees. The air is so thick with heat, your lungs reject it after 60 seconds. Somewhere below the surface, magma is dissolving rock into crystals taller than telephone poles, and bacteria are painting boiling water in colors that don't belong on this planet. These are not digital renders. They are not concept art for a film that never got made. They are coordinates you can find on a map right now. Across every continent, Earth hides places so alien they break the brain's ability to process what it's seeing. And the deeper you go into this list, the stranger this planet gets. Fly Geyser, USA. A geyser in Nevada glows neon red, green, and yellow against a flat brown desert. It was never supposed to exist. In 1964, a geothermal energy company drilled a test well on private land in Washoe County. They hit a geothermal pocket and walked away. The well was never properly sealed. Hot water forced its way upward, carrying dissolved minerals to the surface at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Over decades, calcium carbonate deposits stacked into mounds, now standing over 5 feet tall, growing roughly an inch each year. Thermophilic bacteria, organisms that thrive in extreme heat, colonized the wet surfaces and produced pigments that shift with the seasons. The mound's colors are alive, literally. They change as bacterial colonies expand and contract with temperature fluctuations. The surrounding area is private land owned by the Burning Man Project since 2016, and access requires a scheduled tour through the Black Rock Desert. Stand close enough and you hear it before you understand it. A low hissing, like a radiator under pressure. Steam curls off the mounds in thin sheets, blurring the air so the geyser seems to shimmer and shift. The smell is sulfur and wet minerals, sharp enough to sting the back of your throat. The ground around the base is warm through boot soles. Pools of scalding runoff spread outward, tinted green and orange, too hot to touch. Scientists from NASA and the Desert Research Institute have studied its microbial life to understand how organisms survive in environments similar to Mars. The bacteria here process energy from chemical reactions, not sunlight, a model for how life might exist beneath the surface of other worlds. A drilling mistake in the Nevada desert accidentally built a living laboratory for astrobiology. And this is the mildest place on this list. If you're already rethinking what's possible on this planet, a like lets us know this kind of deep research is what you came here for. Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. The Danakil Depression sits 410 feet below sea level in northeastern Ethiopia, where 3 tectonic plates are pulling apart. Surface temperatures regularly exceed 145 degrees Fahrenheit. The air tastes like battery acid. This is one of the hottest inhabited regions on Earth, and the word inhabited does more work in that sentence than it should. Volcanic activity is constant. Urta Ale, one of the rift's active volcanoes, holds a permanent lava lake that has been burning continuously since at least 1906. The magma sits exposed in a crater you can walk to the edge of. Toxic gases vent unpredictably from fissures in the surrounding salt flats, hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide at concentrations that can cause unconsciousness within minutes. Yellow sulfur pools bubble at the surface, surrounded by formations that look engineered by something not from here. Bright green acid ponds sit next to orange mineral crusts, all of it steaming, all of it dangerous to touch. The pH of some springs drops below 1, more acidic than car battery fluid. Yet extremophile microbes thrive in these pools, and NASA's astrobiology teams study them as analogs for potential life on Jupiter's moon, Europa. The Afar people have mined salt from these flats for centuries, cutting blocks by hand and loading them onto camel caravans. A single slab sells for roughly $4 after a multi-day trek through 130-degree heat. Miners work without protective equipment, breathing sulfur fumes daily. Several die each year from heat exposure or gas inhalation. Their deaths rarely reported beyond the region. If you step off the established paths, the ground can collapse into hidden lava tubes. There are no rescue services, no hospitals within reach, no shade for miles. Your body doesn't slowly overheat here, it shuts down. Some viewers have experienced working or traveling in extreme heat environments. If that's you, the comments are the right place to share what that reality actually feels like. First-hand knowledge matters more than any script. Cave of the Crystals, Mexico. Nearly 1,000 feet beneath the Chihuahuan Desert in Nica, Mexico, the cave holds selenite crystals up to 36 feet long and weighing 55 tons each. They are the largest natural crystals ever found on Earth. The cave was discovered in 2000 by miners drilling through limestone for a lead and silver operation. They broke through a wall and found a chamber that looked like the inside of a geode built for giants. The crystals grew over approximately 500,000 years in water saturated with dissolved gypsum, heated by a magma chamber far below. The water temperature held steady near 136 degrees Fahrenheit for millennia. That stability allowed molecular layers to stack with almost perfect uniformity, producing translucent beams that glow when light passes through them. The air inside registers 136 degrees with 99% humidity. Human lungs cannot extract enough oxygen under those conditions. Without a refrigerated suit and an independent air supply, a person loses consciousness within 10 minutes. Researchers from the University of Granada worked in shifts of no more than 30 minutes, even with full cooling equipment, and reported disorientation and nausea as standard. In 2017, NASA scientists extracted fluid inclusions from inside the crystals and revived microorganisms that had been trapped for an estimated 50,000 years. These organisms survived, sealed inside mineral walls. With no light, no food source, and no air exchange. And they woke up. The discovery reshaped understanding of how long life can remain dormant in sealed environments. The mining company that owns the site pumps water continuously to keep the cave accessible. If the pumps stop, the chamber floods, and the crystals disappear beneath warm groundwater again, hidden until the next time someone drills deep enough to find them. But some places on Earth don't just hide alien landscapes underground. They set the sky on fire. Ijen Crater, Indonesia. Blue flames erupt from cracks in the earth on a volcanic ridge in East Java. The fire is not lava. It is sulfuric gas igniting on contact with air at temperatures exceeding 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit. The phenomenon occurs at only 2 known locations on the planet, and Ijen is the only one accessible on foot. The flames burn up to 16 feet high, visible only after dark, turning the crater into something that looks ripped from a different solar system. The crater lake below is the world's largest highly acidic lake, holding 36 million cubic meters of water with a pH below 0.5. That is more corrosive than hydrochloric acid. The turquoise color comes from dissolved metals, aluminum, iron, and manganese, suspended in water hot enough to dissolve organic material on contact. Sulfur miners climb the crater daily, descending 980 feet on narrow paths slick with condensation and gas residue. They carry baskets loaded with 150 to 180 pounds of raw sulfur, balanced on bamboo poles across their shoulders. The round trip takes 4 to 5 hours. Most miners make 2 trips per day and earn roughly $13. They work without respirators, goggles, or protective clothing. Average life expectancy among EGen miners is significantly lower than the Indonesian national average. Respiratory damage accumulates fast. The smell hits a quarter mile before the rim. Sulfur dioxide burns the sinuses, waters the eyes, and tightens the chest. At the crater's edge, visibility drops to arm's length when gas plumes shift with the wind. Missteps on the descent path are not recoverable. The slope falls directly into the acid lake. NASA has formally studied EGen as a terrestrial analog for conditions on Venus, where sulfuric acid clouds dominate the atmosphere. The next time someone says Earth has no alien landscapes, remember there's a lake in Indonesia that can dissolve a metal boat. If that blue fire burning on a volcano wall gave you chills, a subscribe means the next Explore Danger video lands in your feed automatically. Dead Flay, Namibia. 900-year-old trees stand perfectly preserved in a white clay pan, surrounded by some of the tallest sand dunes on Earth. Nothing here is alive. Nothing has been alive for nearly a millennium, and nothing is decaying. Dead Flay, inside Namibia's Namib Naukluft Park, is a landscape frozen between death and disappearance. The trees are camelthorn, species that once drew water from a river that fed the pan. Roughly 900 years ago, the dunes shifted and cut off the water supply entirely. The trees died of thirst. The air is so dry, Namibia's central desert receives less than 2 inches of rain per year. That bacteria cannot break down the wood, so the trees remain standing, scorched black by centuries of sun, their silhouettes burned against cracked white clay and orange dunes that rise over 1,000 feet. The visual contrast is so extreme that first-time visitors frequently describe it as fake. The white floor, the black trees, the red-orange dune walls, the blue sky. The color palette looks digitally graded. Photographers from National Geographic, BBC Earth, and NASA imaging teams have all used Dead Flay as a benchmark for natural color saturation studies. Getting there requires a 5-kilometer hike across loose sand after a 4x4 drive through the Sosusvlei dune field. Midday temperatures exceed 113 degrees Fahrenheit on the clay surface. There is no shade, no water, and no shelter between the parking area and the flay. Tourists who underestimate the distance or start too late in the morning have required evacuation by park rangers multiple times annually. The Nama people, indigenous to the region, have oral histories describing the river's disappearance. Their word flay means small lake. The name Dead Flay literally translates to dead marsh. It is a graveyard where even the corpses refuse to fall. There is a place where the dead stand for centuries. And then there is a place where the living disappear inside the earth entirely. Son Doong Cave, Vietnam. Sundung is the largest known cave on Earth. Its main passage stretches over 5.5 miles long, reaches 660 feet high, and spans 500 feet wide in places, large enough to fit an entire city block of 40-story buildings inside with room to spare. A Boeing 747 could fly through its largest chambers without touching the walls. British cavers from the British Cave Research Association first explored it in 2009, though a local man named Ho Khan discovered the entrance in 1991 and then lost it in the jungle for 18 years. The cave sits beneath Phong Nha Ke Bang National Park in central Vietnam, carved by subterranean rivers through limestone over 2 to 5 million years. 2 massive sinkholes have collapsed portions of the ceiling, allowing sunlight to pour into the cave and feed fully formed jungles on the cave floor. Trees grow over 100 feet tall inside the cave, rooted in soil washed in by floods. Monkeys, snakes, and birds live in these underground forests, creating isolated ecosystems that have never seen permanent human presence. The cave generates its own weather. Warm, moist air rising through the chambers condenses near the cool ceiling, forming clouds that drift through the darkness. Researchers from the University of Leeds documented persistent fog banks inside the cave that behave identically to low-altitude cloud formations on the surface. Stalagmites exceeding 230 feet rank among the tallest mineral formations ever measured. An underground river runs the full length of the cave, crystal clear and cold, carving deeper into the limestone every year. Only about 1,000 tourists per year are permitted inside, with guided treks costing upward of $3,000 for a multi-day expedition that includes river crossings, jungle navigation, and camping inside the cave itself. A cave with its own clouds and its own jungle sounds impossible. But a lake that mummifies anything that touches its surface sounds worse. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't a typical travel list. Drop a comment and tell us which place so far has completely broken your sense of what Earth should look like. Lake Natron, Tanzania. Lake Natron in northern Tanzania kills almost everything that enters it. The water's pH hovers near 12, alkaline enough to burn human skin on contact and strip ink from printed paper. The temperature in shallow areas reaches 140 degrees Fahrenheit during dry season, heated by volcanic springs feeding from Oldoinyo Lengai, the only active natrocarbonatite volcano on Earth. The alkalinity comes from sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, the same compounds used in ancient Egyptian mummification. Animals that die in the lake become calcified. Photographer Nick Brandt documented birds and bats encrusted in mineral deposits, frozen in lifelike poses on the lake's shore. Eyes open, wings spread, preserved in sodium armor. The images went viral in 2013, earning Natron the nickname the Petrifying Lake. Yet 2.5 million lesser flamingos, roughly 75% of the world's entire population, breed exclusively here. The caustic water creates a natural barrier against predators. Flamingos build nests on evaporite islands that form when water levels drop, surrounded by water too toxic for jackals, hyenas, or snakes to cross. The bird's legs have evolved a thick, scaly coating that resists the alkaline burns that would destroy exposed mammalian skin within hours. Standing on the shoreline, the lake looks almost peaceful. The water is shallow, often pink or deep red from algae blooms. The air smells sharp, metallic, like heated pennies. The mud along the edges is warm, sometimes hot. Local Maasai herders keep their cattle well back from the shoreline. The burns are well documented, and the scars are permanent.
Scientists study natron's extremophile microbial communities as models for how life might survive in the alkaline oceans, hypothesized to exist beneath the ice of Saturn's moon Enceladus, a lake that mummifies the dead. They also hold clues about where life begins. Knowing that 75% of the world's flamingos depend on water that can calcify bone, that's the kind of fact that deserves a share with someone who needs to hear it. The wave.
USA. Sandstone ribbons curve across the Arizona desert in stripes of red, orange, white, and gold. The formation sits on the border of the Paria Canyon Vermilion Cliffs Wilderness, roughly 5 miles from the nearest paved road. Only 64 people per day receive permits to enter, 48 through an online lottery held 4 months in advance, and 16 through a day-of walk-in lottery in Kanab, Utah. The application to permit ratio routinely exceeds 20 to 1. The wave, formed from Jurassic-age Navajo sandstone, laid down 190 million years ago as massive wind-blown sand dunes. Mineral content varies by layer. Iron oxide produces the reds and oranges. Manganese oxide creates the purples, and calcium carbonate leaves the whites. Over millions of years, wind and sporadic flash floods sculpted the layers into undulating curves that mirror liquid motion frozen in stone. The hike to the formation is 6.4 miles round trip across unmarked terrain with no maintained trail, no water sources, and no shade structures. Summer temperatures on the exposed rock surface exceed 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The Bureau of Land Management has documented multiple heat-related fatalities and medical evacuations, including 3 deaths in a single week during June 2023, when hikers underestimated water needs. There are no trail markers because land managers determined that signs would damage the fragile sandstone. Your first view of it stops you mid-step. The curves look synthetic, as if someone dragged a digital brush across the landscape and forgot to render gravity. The layers catch morning light differently than afternoon light. Photographers describe the window between 10 a.m. and noon as the only time the full color range reveals itself. The Navajo Nation considers the broader Vermilion Cliffs region culturally significant. Petroglyphs found nearby date back over 1,000 years. The wave itself carries no markings. Either the formations were considered too sacred to touch, or even ancient peoples found them too strange to explain. Salar de Uyuni, Bolivia. Bolivia's Salar de Uyuni covers over 4,086 square miles of crystallized salt. At 11,995 feet above sea level, the largest salt flat on Earth, and bigger than the entire state of Connecticut. During the wet season, a thin layer of rainwater spreads across the surface and creates the world's largest natural mirror, reflecting the sky with such precision that NASA uses the location to calibrate satellite altimeters. The flat sits atop a prehistoric lakebed, Lago Minchin, which dried up roughly 30,000 years ago. The evaporation left behind salt deposits averaging over 30 feet deep in the center, containing an estimated 10 billion tons of sodium chloride. Beneath that salt lies approximately 50 to 70% of the planet's known lithium reserves, a resource now critical to electric vehicle batteries and global energy infrastructure. Walking onto the flat during mirror season, the horizon vanishes. Sky and ground become one continuous surface. Depth perception fails. Your brain cannot determine where the Earth ends and the atmosphere begins. Visitors report vertigo while standing on level ground, and tour guides advise against running, because the visual disorientation can cause falls. The Aymara and Quechua communities have harvested salt from these flats for generations, cutting blocks by hand and transporting them by llama caravan to highland markets. Today, small-scale mining operations coexist with the growing lithium extraction industry, which has become a point of intense economic and political debate within Bolivia. Temperature swings are severe. Daytime sun at altitude heats the salt surface to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. After sunset, temperatures plummet below freezing. Wind crosses the flat with nothing to slow it. There are no structures, no trees, no terrain variation for over 80 miles in some directions. If your vehicle breaks down at the center of the flat, the nearest paved road is a 4-hour walk across blinding white salt. If a place where the ground reflects the sky and hides the world's lithium supply sounds surreal, the next entry involves swimming between two continents. Silfra Fissure, Iceland. The North American and Eurasian tectonic plates are pulling apart at Silfra Fissure in Iceland's Thingvellir National Park. The gap between the continents widens roughly 2 centimeters per year, and the crack is filled with glacial meltwater, filtered through porous lava rock for decades. The result is underwater visibility exceeding 300 feet, among the clearest naturally occurring freshwater on the planet. The water temperature holds between 35 and 39 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Divers wear dry suits with thermal underlayers, and even then, exposed skin on the face goes numb within minutes. Dive operators require proof of dry suit certification before allowing anyone into the fissure. Hypothermia risk is constant. If a suit seal fails, the cold penetrates fast enough to impair motor function within 10 minutes. Descending into Silfra, the rock walls on either side are close enough to touch simultaneously. You are literally floating between two continental plates. The lava rock is textured, dark, and covered in bright green algae called troll hair that waves gently in the current. Sunlight enters the narrow opening overhead and scatters through the water, creating a blue glow that makes the fissure look illuminated from within. The water is drinkable mid-dive. It originates from Langjökull Glacier, percolates through volcanic rock for 30 to 100 years, and arrives at Silfra purified to a degree that exceeds most municipal treatment standards. Divers describe pulling down their regulators and drinking directly from the fissure as one of the most surreal moments of their lives. The fissure sits within a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Althing, the world's oldest parliament, was founded on its banks in 930 AD. Vikings chose this location specifically because the visible crack in the earth symbolized the meeting of worlds. Would you swim between two tectonic plates in near-freezing water? Be honest in the comments, and tell us whether you'd actually drink from the fissure mid-dive. Antelope Canyon, USA. Flash floods carved Antelope Canyon into Navajo sandstone over 190 million years old, creating slot passages as narrow as 3 feet wide and as tall as 120 feet. The canyon sits on Navajo Nation land near Page, Arizona, and is accessible only through authorized Navajo-guided tours. Upper and Lower Antelope are separate formations. Upper is a ground-level walk. Lower requires climbing metal ladders bolted into the rock. The sandstone layers record ancient dune systems from a time when this region was a vast desert similar to the modern Sahara. Iron and manganese oxides create the red, orange, and purple banding that shifts constantly as sunlight moves overhead. Between late March and early October, concentrated beams of light penetrate narrow openings in the ceiling, and strike the canyon floor, creating the light shafts that have made Antelope Canyon one of the most photographed geological formations in the world. The beauty hides a documented killer. On August 12, 1997, a flash flood roared through Lower Antelope Canyon and killed 11 tourists. The floodwater arrived from a storm miles upstream, with no rain visible at the canyon entrance. Water levels rose 30 feet in minutes. The victims had no warning and no escape route. The canyon walls are vertical, polished smooth, and offer no handholds. Since that event, the Navajo Nation has installed flood monitoring systems and requires all visitors to enter with guides. Inside the canyon, sound behaves strangely. Voices bounce between the close walls and return layered, almost harmonic. The air is cool, even when the desert surface above exceeds 105 degrees. Dust particles suspended in the light beams create visible columns of gold that seem solid enough to touch. The Navajo name for Upper Antelope Canyon translates to the place where water runs through rocks. For 11 people in 1997, the name became the most literal warning imaginable. The fact that 11 people died in a place millions visit for its beauty, that tells you something about how this planet operates. A like on this video says you value content that tells the full story, not just the pretty version. Darvaza Gas Crater, Turkmenistan. A crater 230 feet wide and 65 feet deep has been burning in the Karakum Desert since 1971. Soviet geologists drilling for natural gas hit an underground cavern. The ground collapsed, swallowing the drilling rig and camp equipment. To prevent toxic methane from spreading to nearby villages, engineers ignited the escaping gas, expecting it to burn off within weeks. Over 50 years later, the fire has never stopped. The crater burns continuously, fed by a natural gas reserve whose exact size remains unknown. Turkmenistan's government has not published detailed geological surveys of the site. Independent estimates suggest the pocket could sustain combustion for decades more, though in 2022, President Serdar Berdimuhamedow ordered officials to find a way to extinguish it, a directive that has produced no visible results as of early 2025. Standing at the rim at night, the heat hits your face from 30 feet away. The crater floor is a mosaic of hundreds of individual flames, some blue, some orange, some nearly white at their base. The roar is constant, a deep, low-frequency sound that vibrates in your chest cavity. The air smells of sulfur and scorched earth. Sand around the rim is hot to the touch, even at midnight. There are no guardrails, no barriers, and no permanent structures. Visitors walk to the edge on their own judgment. Nomadic herders in the region report that livestock occasionally wander into the crater at night, drawn by the warmth during cold desert nights. The Karakum Desert drops below freezing in winter, and the glow is visible from miles across the flat terrain. The local name, Door to Hell, was coined by visiting researchers, but the herders who live nearest simply avoid it. They have for generations. An accidental fire that's burned for half a century sounds like fiction, but nature has been painting mountains in impossible colors for 24 million years. Zhangye Dangxia, China. Sandstone mountains in Gansu Province, China, are striped in red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. colors are not painted, projected, or enhanced. They are mineral deposits. Iron oxide for the reds, trace copper for the greens, manganese for the purples, compressed and folded over 24 million years of tectonic activity. The Jiangyi Dangxia National Geological Park covers roughly 200 square miles of these formations. The layering records 24 million years of geological change. Each color band represents a different era of sedimentary deposition under varying climatic conditions. During dry periods, red, iron-rich sediments accumulated. During wetter intervals, gray-green layers formed. Tectonic uplift, beginning in the Himalayan orogeny, tilted and folded these horizontal layers into the diagonal and curved patterns visible today. In the early morning, before humidity builds, the colors reach their maximum saturation. The reds deepen to nearly crimson. The yellows brighten. The pale green bands glow against the warmer tones. By midday, mineral dust lifted by wind creates a soft haze that actually intensifies the contrast between layers by diffusing direct sunlight. Photographers who have shot both the American Southwest and Jiangyi Dangxia report that the Chinese formations contain a color range that simply does not exist in North American geology. Local communities maintained spiritual taboos around the formations for centuries. Oral traditions warned against walking the hills after sunset, when spirits were believed to guard the colors. Modern tourism infrastructure includes elevated boardwalks and viewing platforms, designed to keep visitors off the fragile sandstone, which erodes rapidly under foot traffic. The site was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2009. Annual visitors now exceed 3 million, and the surrounding communities have transitioned from subsistence farming to tourism-dependent economies. The economic transformation has been dramatic. Per capita income in adjacent villages has increased 5-fold since the park's international designation. If you think painted mountains sound like the strangest thing nature can do underground, the next entry involves a cave ceiling that glows like a star map. Waitomo Glowworm Caves, New Zealand. 30 million years of water erosion carved the Waitomo Caves through Oligocene-era limestone beneath New Zealand's North Island. Inside, roughly 12,000 Arachnocampa luminosa larvae, a species found nowhere else on Earth, cling to the cave ceilings and produce a blue-green bioluminescence visible in total darkness. The effect transforms the cave ceiling into a display that visitors consistently compare to a clear night sky at high altitude. The light is not decorative. It is a hunting mechanism. Each larva suspends silk threads coated in mucus droplets from its position on the ceiling. The glow attracts small flying insects toward the threads, where they become trapped. The larva reels in the thread and consumes the prey. The brightness of each larva's glow correlates directly with its hunger. The hungrier the organism, the brighter it shines. A fully fed larva dims noticeably within hours. The cave system includes the cathedral, a chamber with acoustic properties so precise that international opera singers and orchestras have performed there. The New Zealand government regulates visitor numbers strictly. Carbon dioxide from human breath raises cave temperatures and can suppress bioluminescent activity. Tour groups are limited in size and duration, and the cave is periodically closed to allow atmospheric recovery. Beneath the glowworm display, an underground river moves silently through the lower chambers. Boat tours drift through in near total silence, the only light coming from the organisms above. The water is cold, around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity approaches 100%. The air smells like wet limestone and earth. Sound carries strangely in the space. A whisper from the front of the boat reaches the back with a half-second delay, distorted by the curved walls. Fossils embedded in the cave walls date back 30 million years, placing this cave system's formation before New Zealand separated fully from the ancient supercontinent Gondwana. These organisms have been glowing in this darkness since before humans existed. A cave where the ceiling hunts. That's a story most people will never hear anywhere else. If you know someone who'd lose their mind over this, send them this video. Lençóis Maranhenses, Brazil. White sand dunes spread across 600 square miles of northeastern Brazil, and between them sit thousands of freshwater lagoons that appear and vanish with the seasons. Lençóis Maranhenses receives over 47 inches of rain annually, more than London, making it a desert that technically isn't one. The rain collects in the valleys between dunes, pooled by an impermeable clay layer beneath the sand, creating emerald and blue lagoons that reach depths of 10 feet during peak wet season from May through September. Fish live in these temporary pools. The species Cryptolebius marmoratus and several annual killifish have adapted to lay eggs in moist sand before the lagoons dry completely. The eggs survive months of desiccation buried in sand, then hatch when the next rainy season refills the basins. Biologists from the Federal University of Maranhão have documented this cycle for decades and consider it one of the most extreme reproductive adaptations in freshwater fish. The dunes themselves reach 130 feet in height and shift position measurably between seasons. Wind reshapes the entire landscape annually, meaning a lagoon that existed in one location during a previous wet season may not reform there the next year. Navigation without GPS is unreliable. Landmarks literally move. Walking across the dunes at midday, the sand temperature exceeds 140 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface. The white quartz sand reflects sunlight so intensely that sunburn occurs in under 15 minutes without protection. The lagoon water, by contrast, sits at a comfortable 85 degrees, a temperature differential of over 55 degrees between the sand you're standing on and the water 3 feet away. NASA's Earth Observatory has featured Lençóis Maranhenses in spectral imaging studies, noting that its seasonal transformation between white desert and blue-green lagoon field is visible from orbit. It is one of the few places where satellite images taken 6 months apart show what appears to be a completely different landscape in the same location. Chingue de Bimaraha, Madagascar. Limestone needles rise over 200 feet from the forest floor in western Madagascar, creating a stone labyrinth so sharp that the local Malagasy name Tsingy translates directly to "where one cannot walk barefoot." The formations cover roughly 600 square miles of protected reserve and constitute the largest Tsingy formation on Earth. Acidic tropical rainfall over millions of years dissolved the limestone from above, carving vertical channels that widened into canyons and sharpened the remaining rock into blade-like pinnacles. Some ridges are thin enough to see through. The edges can slice exposed skin on casual contact. Researchers who study the formations wear reinforced gloves and fixed-soled boots as standard equipment. Between and beneath the pinnacles, a network of canyons, caves, and underground rivers supports one of the highest rates of endemic species on the planet. Over 90% of the reptiles and 45% of the bird species found here exist nowhere else. 11 species of lemur, including the critically endangered Deccan's sifaka, navigate the razor-sharp limestone by leaping between pinnacle tips, using grip pads on their hands and feet that have adapted specifically to this terrain over millennia. The caves beneath the Tsingy hold fossils of species that went extinct within the last 1,000 years, including giant lemurs the size of gorillas and a pygmy hippopotamus found only on Madagascar. Paleontologists from the University of Antananarivo have recovered bone fragments that rewrite assumptions about Madagascar's megafauna timeline. Standing inside the formation, the sound changes. Wind passing through the narrow stone channels creates a low whistling that shifts pitch depending on which corridor you're in. The air is cooler between the spires. Light enters in narrow shafts, illuminating sections of forest floor while leaving the surrounding area in deep shadow. The visual effect is of standing inside a cathedral designed by erosion rather than architecture. 90% of the wildlife here exists nowhere else on the planet. If that number alone doesn't make this worth sharing, the next entry involves a sinkhole that holds fossils from when the ocean was 500 feet higher. Great Blue Hole, Belize. The Great Blue Hole is a marine sinkhole, 1,043 feet across and over 400 feet deep, sitting in the center of Lighthouse Reef Atoll, roughly 60 miles off the coast of Belize. From the air, it looks like a dark pupil set in a turquoise iris, a near-perfect circle of deep blue water surrounded by shallow coral reef. Jacques Cousteau named it one of the top 10 dive sites in the world after exploring it in 1971. The hole began as a limestone cave during the last ice age, when sea levels were over 400 feet lower than today. As oceans rose, the cave flooded and the ceiling collapsed, forming the sinkhole. Giant stalactites, some exceeding 40 feet in length, hang from ledges at depths of 100 to 130 feet. Physical proof that these chambers were once dry, air-filled caves. Stalactites can only form in open air, where mineral-rich water drips and evaporates. Below 290 feet, the water becomes anoxic. No dissolved oxygen remains. Marine life vanishes entirely. The water column transitions from clear blue to a deep, lightless black. Divers who have reached the bottom report a layer of hydrogen sulfide at roughly 300 feet, visible as a purple-tinted haze that marks the boundary between living ocean and dead zone. Below that line, nothing moves. Richard Branson and Fabien Cousteau led a 2018 submarine expedition to the floor and found plastic bottles, lost dive equipment, and 2 unidentified human bodies, likely divers who exceeded their depth limits and never surfaced. The discovery generated international media coverage and renewed debate about recreational deep dive safety standards. Reef sharks, giant grouper, and nurse sharks patrol the upper reaches of the hole, their silhouettes circling against the gradient from light to total darkness. Caribbean reef communities living on the surrounding atoll depend on the Blue Hole's tourism economy. Roughly 100,000 visitors per year contribute an estimated $20 million to the Belizean coastal economy. Fossils on the bottom, bodies in the deep, and an economy built on a flooded cave. The Great Blue Hole is everything strange about this planet, compressed into a single circle of water. There are places that look alien because of what nature built. And then there are places that look alien because the Earth itself is boiling apart beneath your feet. Namafjall, Iceland. The hillside at Namafjall in northeastern Iceland hisses, bubbles, and steams across a barren expanse of red, yellow, and gray clay.
Boiling mud pots reach temperatures near 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Sulfur-encrusted fumaroles vent gas continuously, staining the surrounding soil in streaks of bright yellow against oxidized red. No plants grow here. The soil chemistry is too toxic. High concentrations of sulfuric acid and heavy metals prevent root establishment entirely. The geothermal field sits along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, where the North American and Eurasian plates diverge. The magma chamber beneath Krafla volcano, less than 5 miles away,
heats groundwater that rises through fractures in the basalt bedrock. The Krafla system last erupted between 1975 and 1984 in a series of events called the Krafla fires, which opened new fissures and increased geothermal output measurably across the Namafjalt field. Walking the marked paths, the ground is warm through heavy boots. Some spots are dangerously thin. The crust over active mud pots can be only inches thick, with boiling slurry directly beneath. Park authorities have documented injuries from visitors stepping off marked trails. In 2019, a tourist sustained severe burns after breaking through surface crust near an unmonitored fumarole. The air is thick with hydrogen sulfide. The smell of rotten eggs, sharp and pervasive. At high concentrations, the gas causes headaches, nausea, and disorientation. Long-term residents of the nearby town of Mavaten report becoming nose-blind to the odor, but first-time visitors often describe the smell as overwhelming within minutes. Sulfur mining at Namafjalt dates to the 16th century, when Icelandic communities extracted it for gunpowder production. Miners worked in conditions that would be classified as immediately dangerous to life by modern OSHA standards. Today, NASA and the European Space Agency study Namafjalt's geochemistry as an analog for Martian hydrothermal systems. If you've watched this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer Explore Danger makes content for. Subscribing means you won't miss what comes next. And what comes next involves a rock ledge hanging 700 feet over a Norwegian fjord. Trolltunga, Norway. A flat tongue of rock juts horizontally over the edge of a cliff 2,300 feet above Ringedalsvatnet Lake in southwestern Norway. Trolltunga, Norwegian for Troll's Tongue, is the remnant of a glacial shelf that broke away roughly 10,000 years ago during the last ice age. The protruding slab measures approximately 15 feet long and 6 feet wide at its widest point. There are no railings, no safety cables, and no barriers of any kind. The hike to reach Trolltunga covers 17 miles round trip, with 2,600 feet of total elevation gain. The trail crosses exposed alpine terrain, boulder fields, snow patches that persist into July, and several stream crossings with no bridges. Average completion time is 10 to 12 hours. Norwegian rescue services, Røde Kors, report dozens of emergency evacuations per year, primarily from hypothermia, exhaustion, and ankle injuries on wet rock. In 2015, an Australian tourist fell to her death while posing for a photograph on the ledge. The final approach to the tongue crosses a narrow ridge with steep drops on both sides. Wind speeds at the exposed summit frequently exceed 40 miles per hour. Cloud cover can descend without warning, reducing visibility to near zero and disorienting hikers who have not GPS marked the trail. The Norwegian Trekking Association rates the route as demanding and recommends it only for experienced hikers with full equipment, including emergency bivouac gear. Standing on the tongue itself, the view is straight down 2,300 feet of vertical air between your feet and the green lake surface below. The rock vibrates faintly in strong wind. The silence at the summit is broken only by wind and the occasional distant rumble of small rockfalls from adjacent cliffs. Vertigo is common, even among experienced climbers. The site draws roughly 100,000 visitors annually during the June through September hiking season. Its Instagram presence has made it one of Norway's most recognized natural landmarks, and one of the most sobering reminders that a famous photo opportunity and a safe destination are not the same thing. Would you stand on a rock ledge 2,300 feet above a glacial lake with no railing and wind pushing 40 miles per hour? Be brutally honest in the comments. Cappadocia, Turkey. Volcanic eruptions roughly 60 million years ago buried central Turkey's Anatolian plateau under hundreds of feet of ash, which compressed into a soft rock called tuff. Harder basalt caps protected columns of tuff beneath them, while surrounding material eroded, producing thousands of conical spires, fairy chimneys, that reach up to 130 feet tall. The landscape covers approximately 100 square miles of the Göreme region in Nevşehir province. Human civilizations have been carving into these formations for at least 4,000 years. The Hittites hollowed out storage rooms. Early Christians fleeing Roman persecution built entire underground cities. Derinkuyu, the deepest, extends over 200 feet below the surface across 18 levels, and once sheltered an estimated 20,000 people, with livestock, wine presses, and ventilation shafts. The city included stone doors weighing up to 1,000 pounds that could be rolled into place from inside to seal tunnel entrances. At dawn, hundreds of hot air balloons rise simultaneously over the fairy chimneys, creating what tourism boards consistently rank among the world's most photographed scenes. But the flights carry real risk. In 2013, a balloon struck a fairy chimney during descent, killing 2 Brazilian tourists and injuring 23. Turkish aviation authorities have since imposed stricter weather minimums, but incidents continue. 3 passengers died in a 2024 crash attributed to wind shear. The rock itself is still eroding. Fairy chimneys collapse periodically, and several cave hotels built into the formations have been evacuated due to structural instability. The same softness that made the rock carvable makes it impermanent. Engineers from Middle East Technical University estimate that several prominent chimney formations visible today will be structurally compromised within 50 years. From a hot air balloon at sunrise, the entire landscape looks sculpted by hand. Thousands of pale spires rising from green valleys, their shadows stretching long and thin across the plateau. It looks like a civilization that grew from the earth, instead of building on top of it. In a sense, that's exactly what it was. This planet hides places that shatter every assumption about what the ground beneath us can do, what water can create, what fire can sustain, and what life can survive. We covered 20 of them today. There are hundreds more. Some of the people watching this have stood at the edge of a volcanic crater. Some have dived into caves no tourist ever sees. Some have walked deserts that appear on no trail map. The comments on Explore Danger videos aren't generic. They're filled with real stories from people who have been to places like these and came back with something to say. If you've been somewhere that belongs on this list, tell us. Name the place. Describe what it felt like to stand there. The engineers, the divers, the trekkers, the geologists who watch this channel, Your experience makes this community something no algorithm can replicate. And if this was your first Explore Danger video, subscribe. The next one goes deeper.